I did not choose this body. It came to me from an ancestral entity unknown, unrequested. I apologize in advance for my misleading appearance, for my shoes spend no time on a court meant for games. I don't throw balls into hoops for the approval of a cheering crowd of faces, regardless of perceived biological advantages. I did not choose this face. It wears a smile like a neon safety vest. I hate smiling, exposing irreplaceable bones to unpredictable strangers, an unattractive evolutionary weakness, but I like the way it makes people feel. I like knowing that nobody expects me to smile. The largest rebellion a man can incite is within himself. Relinquishing his expected indifference towards the world around him to be a true revolutionary is anything but needless stoicism, anything but repression. I did not choose this heart, beating on the outside of my chest, begging for someone to tear it with one bare hand. You're just too sensitive. The words found their way to me enough times to fill the cracks, to guard the openings in case I ever decided that I wanted to feel something again, but it was easier not to. My presence once was marked by the trail of freshly pumped blood, raw and human, but now there's only the hollow sound of thumping against a thick, cold cage. I did not choose this love because why would I? I was born with enough oddities, enough to address. Why would I beg for the world to scrutinize the only way I know how to exist? Would I choose to be the subject of ridicule? Would I ensure that each ugly slur found its way into my back pocket, uttered quietly as though they somehow lost their meaning in the silence, but I heard them? They never left once they came, and I wish I could forget what they brought with them. Among the bounty is a lesson, a realization that the world would not truly accept me truthfully because the world accepts very few people. How sad. For the world and her condemnation of diversity. I did not choose to be tall, to be expressive, to be emotional, and I most definitely did not choose to be gay. I didn't choose to exist in a world where existence is controversial, but should you be outcasted, then know who you are, know what you offer. The only thing the world can relinquish from you, which can take from you, is what you relinquish from a white-knuckled hand, balled into a fist in case of emergency. You can clap, it's okay. That spoken word piece briefly reflects a struggle I have undergone for my entire life. In my earliest years, my flamboyant personality landed me at sessions of performing arts summer camp. A close relationship with my older sister meant hours were spent watching Disney Channel original movies and playing with dolls. Some of my earliest memories have peripheral vision that is marked by the frills of a tutu or a princess dress, one that a family friend squeezed me into, because dang, those things did not fit me. I didn't feel abnormal in that I was merely shaped by circumstance. I was being who I was, a happy, sweet, albeit loud, little boy with absolutely no understanding of societal expectations or the status quo, and I can remember one of the first times that changed. I was 9 years old, in summer, a week before my first day of Pace's third grade, and I was going to play on the playground with two boys from school my age. These two boys would go on to be some of my closest friends, but not before enlightening me on some of the harsh realities of gender norms and the status quo here in America. You see, my innocent eyes fell upon the couple of boys playing a makeshift version of football, and my heart sank. I had absolutely never played football, and I had not even really touched a football before. Sports just weren't something that particularly piqued my interest. I never quite understood why men would sit around the TV and yell for hours on end. But I hoped that this ailment wouldn't be an issue. Upon confessing to the boys, they both regarded me with confusion. They were kind, but one notable response included a thought that I thought all boys liked football. But I didn't. So what did that make me? My foundational time at Pace was marked by continued efforts to conform to the very apparent but unspoken standards set by other boys in my grade. An LL Bean backpack, Nike Elite socks, deep appreciation for gym class, a lack of interest in music, art, or writing. My sense of individuality faded into the background, and suddenly I was a lost child. The problem was not that 9-year-old boys love Nike clothing. The problem arises when it's not okay if another boy doesn't love the same things. I once wore a necklace to school, the wrapped kind that baseball players wear, covered head to toe in Braves logos with baseballs on both ends, frankly the ugliest thing I've ever worn. And the boy at the table next to me laughed all day because it was just much too similar to something a female might wear. I was wearing a baseball necklace, and I was still made fun of. This was how it worked. This is still how it works in so many instances, and these are harmful beyond comprehension. For me, being conditioned away from anything that was considered different from normal ended up just conditioning me away from any kind of self-expression at all. I carried this trauma with me into middle school. My 6th grade self had made the then devastating realization that I was gay. Things finally fell into place, but in a way that only amplified my own discomfort. I could not even consider the possibility of a future as a homosexual. I had heard the term gay used as an insult enough times, even as a child, to know that my newly discovered identity was not going to fit well within our society. So rather than middle school being a time of awakening, it was a time of deep repression. I doubled down on vineyard vines. I resented my 6 straight hair's inability to curl at the back like a lacrosse player, not a soccer player. But I did try to convince myself that I liked soccer, and I even dated 2 girls, one of whom is in the audience today. Hi, Annabeth. But I kissed the other one at a bar mitzvah in 7th grade, which is probably one of the most traumatizing things I've ever been through. And that very dark and uncomfortable experience solidified my own disinterest in women. Right then and there, I said, this is not for me. I'm good. But I was not yet ready to be thrust outside of the pearly white gates of the status quo. It was much easier to pretend and remain included than it was to come to terms with myself, to be honest and face being alone. I would not come to terms with myself for a very long time. I came out in the form of a close friend revealing the information to a table full of boys in my grade the summer before my freshman year. My parents barely had time to process my confession before they were asked questions and comments from other parents. This was how it works. This is still how it works. Being gay is and was a scandal. And what do you do when your existence is scandalized? You suffer. It was an occurrence so out of the ordinary and so unique and so mind-boggling that it warranted massive public reaction, although it didn't really. People are just very bad at accepting things that are unusual to them. There simply is not a place for people like me, not at this school or anywhere else in the world. And I understand how that sounds, incredibly pessimistic, but it was actually the greatest realization that I've ever made in my life. And I'll tell you one more story. It was my sophomore year, and I was lucky enough to be chosen to go on a trip to Argentina to hike the Patagonian mountains with largely juniors and seniors. One day, as we hiked a dazzlingly beautiful glacier, one of the most amazing experiences of my life, I was walking in line with boy number 1 and boy number 2. And boy number 1 decided it would be funny to spoil the ending of Game of Thrones to boy number 2. I know everyone loves that show. I've never seen it. I don't really remember what the spoiler was. But in all of boy number 2's anger and frustration, he turned to me and said with genuine hatred in his voice, "Jack Brown, you're a fucking queer." It wasn't my first time being called a slur. It was not the first variation or the last variation I had heard either, but it was the first time somebody could look me in the face and say it with genuine resolution. It was the first time it did not come from a phone screen or a third-party messenger or a whisper in the hallway. It was the first time somebody meant it. And why? Why did he say that to me? If somebody knows, let me know, because I'll never know. And it made me realize that if standing in close proximity to a victimless prank warrants a homophobic attack, what the hell won't? The most liberating realization I have ever made was realizing that I had spent my entire first 17 years of life trying to make other people happy rather than myself. Why was I fighting so hard to stay afloat in this status quo, to be held to standards that I had no desire to meet in the first place? Didn't make sense. And so normalcy, the status quo, other people's opinions, all left in the same car, because what could I do to stop people like boy number 2 from existing? And life became a lot more fun. By junior year, my bold outfits regularly received praise from Senora Agrondholms, who, if you don't know, is Pace Academy's resident fashion model. She will tell you about her closet. Ask her about it. I spent every free period that I had in the art studio, painting and drawing just to get better. I began to expand my poetic pursuits to explore my sense of self and my identity. And I even had my first boyfriend, one from junior year, which flopped dramatically and hilariously, but now serves as a constant reminder of how much I've grown and changed just in the last 4 years. I would like to close today by urging each individual here to deeply consider their own life. Ask yourself, what things do you do or make yourself do that you have no interest in doing? And why are you doing those things? Are you bound by other people's perceptions? Now let's consider the things that you've always wanted to achieve but never did. What's holding you back? Are there people whose reactions you're afraid of? What do those people look like? What do they truly want? It is questions like these that allowed me to wake up to the disservice that I was doing myself by existing within parameters that clearly could not contain me. It is nobody's responsibility but your own to become the person that you are destined to become. You owe it to 8-year-old you to become who you're meant to be, and you will not do so searching for scraps of yourself in the basement of a floor of a building labeled conformity. You will find it when you've given up on conforming and all that's left is everywhere else in the world. Thank you.